Let's continue with the third and final segment on wills and trusts by Sam Kreamer.
Well, with time remaining, I'd rather talk a little bit about these powers of attorney, and I want to start with the power of attorney for healthcare. That, to me, is the most important part of the entire estate plan. A power of attorney for healthcare is a declaration of somebody to make a healthcare decision for you if you can't make one for yourself. Now, what's a healthcare decision? Well, the answer is it could be nothing. I mean, a healthcare decision could be, make sure that I get physical therapy and they roll me over in bed so I don't get bed sores. Okay? That could be a healthcare decision. It could also be a healthcare decision to say, turn the respirator off. Okay? That too is a healthcare decision. So the person that you appoint for that has got to be a person that can make a very difficult decision in a very stressful situation. Now, normally people say, I want my spouse to do that, okay? Now, I gotta tell you, I got enough life insurance. My wife's gonna say, he's got a hangnail, let him go. Okay, but by the same token, you want somebody that can make those types of decisions. And when you're looking for that person, sometimes people want their children to do that. Well, sometimes they say, Sam's the oldest, he'll make the decision. You got to ask the question, who's going to make the best decision at that time, not who's the oldest, okay? Oftentimes people say, well, I want my children to make this decision together. This is a recipe for disaster, okay? What if, Becky's on a cruise and a decision has to be made? Can Sam make it without Becky? The answer is probably no. Can Becky be reached? Probably no. Okay? So these are the situations where we say, have a succession. Sam. If Sam's not available, Becky. If Becky's not available, Lori. So that you have one decision maker, so there can't be an argument among the group, and who decides if that decision maker is unavailable. Now, people ask us what about living wills? A living will is slightly different. A living will is a declaration to an attending physician that if you're in a terminal condition, you want to be let go. Don't want to be uncomfortable on the way out, but you want to be let go. We don't recommend you have both a living will and a power of attorney for healthcare. The reason for that is several, but first and most important, the powers overlap, right? If you have overlapping powers, what happens if somebody disagrees? What happens if the doctor wants to keep working and the holder of the power of attorney says stop? Now, we haven't seen those situations, okay? And we don't know from our empirical data how these people, interact. But we think it's a possibility. Second thing about a living will rather than a power of attorney for healthcare is we think that puts a doctor in a terrible position. Yes, they do it all the time. Yes, they can understand some of these issues. But normally, a doctor is there to work, right? They're there to do no matter what. That may not be what you want, right? And it may not be in the best interests of your family. Puts a doctor in a terrible position. But the most important, and third, is the attending physician could be darn near anybody, right? I mean, you're wheeled into Mercy or Methodist, you don't know who the attending physician is. If you name someone as your power of attorney for healthcare, that person knows you. They're able to make a decision. They know or should know what you would want in that situation. So we're big proponents of having a power of attorney for healthcare, not so much on the living will. If somebody says, Sam, we got to have a living will, talk them out. If they won't be talked out of it, we do a living will. It's not something that I would tell you is bad. It's just something we don't recommend. A power of attorney for financial matters is also extremely important. just like a power of attorney for healthcare, it takes effect if and only if you can't make a financial decision for yourself due to illness or infirmity or competency. Okay? Now, whether someone's competent or not's a technical issue under the law. I will tell you my wife has a different definition, but the point is that it's for financial matters. Someone to write a check for you if you can't write one for yourself. Someone to make sure that your life continues financially. This is a very important thing, and we feel it's not as important as the power of attorney for healthcare, but critical. You're only going to need your will once. You never know when you're going to need that power of attorney for healthcare. Well, in this presentation, I've tried to give you an overview of the estate planning process, and I've talked a little bit about wills, and I've talked a little bit about powers of attorney. And I want to give you some action steps, okay? First, educate yourself. Now, I am starting to have clients come in and tell me about the brilliant article that they read on the internet, and therefore they should explain estate law to me, which I always find humorous, and I normally sit for about 10 or 15 minutes, and that's about all I can take. The point is, you should know something about this. Attending these pre-retirement seminars, this is a great idea. Find somebody you want to work with, whether that's your attorney, life insurance people, bankers. Find people that are going to be on your team that you want to work with. If you cannot communicate with your lawyer, find another lawyer. There are lots of terrific lawyers in this town and in this state that can help you. Think about who you'd want to make decisions. Who would you want to make sure your assets are properly distributed? Who would you want to hold the power to make a healthcare decision for you? Have the necessary documentation prepared. We have actually had situations whereby between the time of final preparation of the document and final signing of the document, again, you got to have it signed, the longest time we've had is 5.5 years. And of course, you know, we're contacting them all the time, every month, every couple of weeks, and saying, hey, you know, because if something happens, it happens, you know? And if they're not signed, they're not enforced. Make sure the documents get done and get signed. And finally, we tell you to review the documents periodically. How often? Sort of when you need to, right? Oftentimes when there's a big event in the family, a death in the family, a divorce, a child born, a child passing, we tell you review your will. Second time to review your will, I don't understand it, but people always come in before they want to go out of the country. People want to go to Europe, they want to make sure their will's updated, they're afraid they're going to pass there. And okay, can I tell you another story? Okay. Story's about a guy that gets a call from the American Embassy, and the call comes in and the ambassador says, this is ABC, I'm the American ambassador to Israel, and your mother-in-law has passed. Our choices are we can bury her here in Israel, $500, or we can ship the body back and with taxes and costs and stuff, we know that'll be over $15,000. Guy thinks for a minute and he says, okay, $500 there, $15,000 here. Send her here. The ambassador says, oh my goodness, you must have been very fond of your mother-in-law. He says, no. He says, I heard about another guy that got buried over there, and 3 days later he's up walking around. I can't take that risk. So review the documentation periodically. Make sure that when there's a big event, that you do have somebody help you. I started my presentation with a story about Mike and Sally. And we'd have to agree that, you're going to die is an estate plan. we'd have to agree that, in effect, Sally has taken control of Mike's estate plan, right? She's decided what's going to happen. Estate planning is not about dying. Estate planning is about having a plan. Estate planning is making sure that what you want done will get done when you're not there to be able to make a decision. Whether that's the distribution of assets through a will, with the creation of a trust, whether that's powers of attorney when you're sick and cannot tell people what you want. Estate planning is about you. Estate planning is about taking control. Estate planning is about making sure what you want done gets done when you're not there. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for this opportunity to speak. I believe we have just a little bit more time for Stump the Lawyer. Are there questions? Yes, ma'am.
My question is, if you have a relatively simple estate in that you're married, children, blah, 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 what is the cost for going to a lawyer and getting these kind of services, generally?
Okay. I would tell you that if you pay $500 for a joint will with powers of attorney and that kind of stuff, you're going to somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. Okay, that's too little. I would tell you that if you paid $2,000 for something simple like that, that's too much. I would tell you that you should anticipate you're going to pay between $750 and $1,250. But every lawyer has a different fee schedule. We're not allowed to, fix prices. But I would say that for something relatively simple, you should be in that range.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Would my siblings end up inheriting my estate because my children or my spouse are no longer in the picture or are already passed away? Do they pay the inheritance tax?
Yes. A sibling will be subject to an inheritance tax.
Okay.
And it's actually one of the few cases where we've actually seen that. Yes, ma'am.
What are the traditional costs for a bank to administer the trust?
Banks have their own fee schedules. We have seen that it's from about 2% of the assets for smaller estates to 0.5% for very large estates. Obviously, it depends. We deal with banks all over the state, and we deal with the national banks. I would tell you they each have their own fee schedule, and they all have pluses and minuses.
But part of that, does that also mean that the families lose control? So I had read something that if another agency comes in, they will immediately start selling and dispersing, and then kind of cuts the family out of decision making.
The trustee is the one who makes decisions. So the answer is you pick a bank that is going to be receptive to dealing with the family. Okay? Now, is the family cut out of the decision making? The answer is, again, the trustee makes the decision, so the family's not exactly in the decision making, but a beneficiary has a right to go to the trustee and says, look, this is what the trust says, and this is what I want done. And if the trustee says no, the trustee's liable. And that's another good reason to use a bank. Because if Uncle Mike's the trustee, you got children, grandchildren suing Uncle Mike, and Uncle Mike has no money. The point is, you're much better served having a trustee be a bank, even if there is some control allowed to the trustee. Yes, ma'am.
This is kind of off topic, but my grandmother died, and my uncle was presumably the executor. There was no probate, and there was no trust, and he just dispersed the money, and that was it. There was no, ad in the paper, there were no letters sent to heirs. Is that legal? What is that? We never, and I did get a small little piece, but we never did see a copy of the will. And his kids end up with a farm, and we got the house in town. So I kind of wondered, don't you have to go through probate or have a trust?
To pass title to real estate, okay, there has to be a connection of title. And when someone passes, there either has to be a probate or the real estate has to previously be in a trust. If not, there's a cloud on title. Now, having said that, there are ways to remove the cloud on title, and there's ways to do this. Whether your it's grandmother's estate has been properly administered, I would not want to comment on that, but it's just unclear whether your grandmother's estate has been properly administered.
And then the other thing is the uncle who was in charge, he is dead now. And so any money...
I would say he's probably not liable then.
So is it worth a fight? Because now you then have to get the money from the kids to equal out.
Fighting is very expensive.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But there was a lot of farmland.
Farmland's also very expensive.
Yeah, so.
Are there other questions? My contact information is on the front of this, and if you do need assistance, we'd be happy to help. Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching. Should you have any questions or comment for Sam, you can reach his office at 515-727-0900. Thanks again.